Hello, crafters! I am so glad to be here with you this beautiful Monday. I hope that you've had a fantastic weekend and are enjoying a fun Monday. So, today marks our very first um, installment of Mix It Up Monday. So, for the rest of this year, I hope to bring you on most of the Mondays an idea that I came up with called Mix It Up Monday, where I am going to pull some random products from my craft stash and create a card. And I'll make a template of that idea. And the idea is to help you look at your stash, pull out some similar products, and create your own cards. Because I know sometimes we buy things and we think, oh, I can't wait to work with that. Then we get home and it's like, okay, now what do I really do with this? So I'm going to show you how you can pull ideas from your stash, no matter what kind of products you have, and create some fun cards out of it. So let's go ahead and change the camera view and take a look at what we're going to make today. Okay, so here is the card that I came up with for today. And it's a pretty simple template. I wanted to kind of start off simple because, it doesn't always have to be big and elaborate. So I've got a couple cards here. Let's go ahead and take a look at the products, because these cards actually use product from lots of different companies. All right, so to start off, we have the Tailored Expression Designer Layering Stencils with Matching Dies. These are very popular right now. There are several companies that are doing kind of similar things with templates, with stencils and dies, and Tailored Expression does a great job. I really like them because they make just cute little images. So if you don't have any of these, I highly recommend taking a look at Tailored Expressions. But there are, like I said, there's several companies doing this right now, and it's really fun. So that's one of the products. I went to Pink Fresh Studios to choose some sentiments, and we all have sentiment stamps, right, from all different companies. So just go and grab yourself a sentiment stamp set that maybe you haven't used yet and would go with your whatever image you choose. And then I went to Catherine Pooler Designs to choose a stamp that I'm going to use on my background. So it could have been any of these that I chose, even one of these smaller ones, but I decided to use this long floral right here. But really, any kind of small stamp, you can create a background with it. All right, the only other things I pulled in to finish off our card were Catherine Pooler Sequin Mix, and I'm using the Mystic. And I also have one piece of designer paper from, I believe this is from Close to My Heart. So if you're like me, you've got so much paper in your craft space that using some of it up is a good thing. So really, any paper. I know Lawn Fawn has a whole pad that is kind of this watercolor look, but really it could even just be a pattern paper, anything you like. So to start off making our card, whatever you're going to use as your background stamp, let's go ahead and get that out. I will be using a stamping platform today. I'll be using the Misty. Oops, I did forget to show you some of the things, but we'll go to that later. But there was one other company that I used today, and I'll show you those when we get to that point. Okay, so whatever you're going to use as your background stamp, go ahead and pull that out. And like I said, I'm going to be using a stamping platform just because it makes it easier for me. And I laid my card this way and gave myself some space on either end. And I'm going to start at the top of my paper. And today I'm going to be using some Catherine Pooler inks. I'm going to start with the Sweet 16. And you may notice that I keep my domed dauber right there on top. I have a piece of Velcro that I have stuck right there, and this is where I keep them. That way the same color is just right there. And then my little wooden handles, I keep them blank, and I just keep a couple on my desk all the time, so when I grab my ink, if I need to use the dauber, it's right there ready to go. That's just how I do it. Okay, so I'm going to be starting with the Sweet 16. And we'll go ahead and ink up our background stamp. I like to go over it a couple times. Now, whether you're using one image or a striped image, if your image that you have chosen has an irregular shape to the edge of it, one thing to give it more of a random look is, instead of putting it down the exact same direction, I'm going to, let me get back here in camera view, I'm going to turn it around. Okay, that way our flowers aren't exactly in the same place. Because if I left it the same way, this big focal flower is going to be in the exact same place all the way down. So I rotated that. Now, if you were doing a smaller stamp, you would want to be very random in how you put it down to create your background. All right, and we're just going to continue this all the way down. I'm going to turn it this way. Maybe you'll be able to see more consistently. There we go. Okay. Now I'm just going to move these this way. Now, if your stamp is one that can shift, you might want to shift it this way or that to give it some more variation in the look that you get. So my idea with this Mix It Up Monday is that you'll maybe be inspired to pull some different things out of your collection and recreate the template, making your own creation. And I would love it if you would post whatever you come up with on Carrie Lee Creations Facebook page. I would love to see what y'all pull from your craft stash to create. There we go. So I'm hoping to do this every Monday, and I will give you a sneak peek at what we're going to do for next week's at the end of our video today. All right. Okay, so there we've just created a simple background for ourselves. Of course, if we wanted to, we could color this up. We could have used multi-colors of inks. You know, there's of course all kinds of ideas. You could even ink it and do some other things there to jazz that up if you wanted to. But for the most part, I just wanted to make a pretty background for my stenciled images that we're going to do here in a moment. Okay, so here is our purple background. Go. Pretty simple. Now, the other company that I didn't mention is Heartfelt Creation, and I pulled in some Heartfelt Creation dies, which are some of my favorite go-to dies. If you have not heard, Heartfelt Creation will be closing their doors at the end of the year. So there are just some incredible deals going on right now. Right now for the month of April, if you spend $100, you get a free paper pad. But in the warehouse clearance, you can pick up these very you know, your kind of basic staple dies and get up to a 70% discount. So that's just a fantastic savings. So if you haven't heard about that, that's just a little tip for you. That is going on right now. But I have pulled out some of their dies. Now, I have two different size circles here. And for these two, I'm going to make a little outline by die cutting these two together out of white. Comes up with this nice little eyelet outline. Now I'm going to take this same circle that I used to cut that out, and I'm going to cut a circle here out of this one. And just up there in the upper right hand corner, it doesn't have to, or left hand corner, it doesn't have to be any perfect space. You just want to give yourself some room on either side. Now, I've already done this for my yellow one, so we're going to go ahead and work with the yellow one from here on out. I try to make it so you guys don't have to hear my die cutting machine go. It's kind of loud. And with this bigger circle that I pulled, so these two are the ones that I used to make this. This bigger circle is just a little bit one size larger than this circle, and I cut that out of my watercolor paper. So these two pieces are almost ready to go. This piece, it was 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I went ahead and trimmed that down 1/4 inch on two sides so that I will have an 1/18 inch white edge on my card. And I can show you that on the card here. You can see how we have the 1/18 of an inch edge. So once I did my stamping, I went ahead and after I did my die cutting, and I kind of trimmed it so that my circle was where I wanted it based on that. So I did do that before we moved on. Okay, let's get to the fun part, which is our stenciling. Okay, for the stencils today, I am going to be using a stick and stamp mat from Brutus Monroe. If you haven't used one of these with your stencils, I love it. It really holds your paper in place so that you don't have a lot of shifting, because nothing's worse than, you know, being like third stencil in and having it move and mess up and having to start over from square one. That is very frustrating to me. So I like to put my paper at the very top. And let's see here. Here are my stencils. Now the stencils are numbered, but you can pretty much use them in whatever order that you want to, but I am going to pretty much do it, I'm going to start with the biggest image. So the way I like to do it is go ahead and line that up where I want it, and then I'm going to tape it down on the top, and that is going to hold everything in place while I stencil. So for my, whoops, maybe we can need to tape that one more time. The tape didn't quite reach my stamp mat. You do want to make sure that none of it's moving. So I'm going to go ahead and on the bottom, you can't see it in the pictures, but I'm going to go ahead and tape the stamp mat down separately. Okay. All right, so now that we have it all taped down, we're going to go ahead and stencil our two main images here, and I'm going to be using Mint to Be. And there's also, if you have the newer color, it's called Minty, like M-I-N-T-Y. I have the older color, so it's called Mint to Be. And one thing you can do is if you have some little Post-it notes on hand, you can use those to kind of block off any area where you think you might accidentally, you don't want to get that color to go over. So you can go like that to cover up my flowers. And now we're just going to make those minty. So let me know there in the comments, do you use Catherine Pooler inks, or what is your preferred brand of ink? So many beautiful inks on the market, and I want them all. It's kind of like paper for me. I see it and I just want it. I love beautiful ink colors. But Catherine Pooler inks, I do love the way they blend, the way they stamp. You know, they're kind of all-purpose. I can just use them for so many things, so they have become one of my favorites. Definitely my most used inks are the Catherine Poolers. Okay, so once we get the Mint to Be, we'll set that one aside. And I'm not going to pull up my stencil quite yet, because now we're going to do the upper part. And for this, I'm going to make my, I believe those are lilies, and I'm going to start with Sweet 16. You can see how old I've been using them a long time. There we go. Now on the stencils, and this is just true for any stenciling, sometimes there's little bitty points, so it's best if you kind of work at a downward angle when you're doing those little point areas. It's just something to think about, especially little leaves. Later on there's little leaves, and they pull up so easily. So if you've been a stenciler, you know to watch out for that. I tend to bend them back when I'm cleaning them. That's when I need to be extra careful. Now for the flowers on this side, we're going to be using the Coral Cabana. And of course, whatever you decide to be your little focal point image, you can make that just all kinds of colors. I mean, depending on what you're going to do. I'm just sharing with you what I've used here. Okay, so I'm going to do a very light coating of the Coral Cabana here. Alright, and that makes us done with the top layering stencil, and I'm just going to raise up. Now, My piece of paper was a little too small, but there's little squares here where if you make sure you get some ink on these squares, it makes it very easy to line up the next stencil. You just line up those little squares. Okay. And I have just a hint of them down here at the bottom. Okay, once we get them in place, we'll go ahead and we're just going to do the same thing. Our next color for the two bottom pieces is Aquatini. And for the Aquatini, I'm going to use a smaller dauber because they're just a little bit smaller spaces, and that'll give me just a little bit more control to get that down in where I want it. Yeah. I just love stenciling. It's such a fast way to get a beautiful look. For our next purple color, we're going to use Pixie Dust. And I think I can do this without having to come in with my papers. I think I can angle that and get those. All right, and then for our flowers on this side, I'm going to use Do-Si-Do, which is just a little bit shade different pink than our Coral Cabana. Now, one thing about Catherine Pooler inks, they do dry back. So sometimes when you first put it on, it's going to appear kind of darker, like maybe it's a darker color and you'll think, oh no, that's too dark for what I wanted. But if you give that some time, it dries back a little bit. So usually whatever the color is on the lid, once it dries back, that is going to be what it looks like. So see how it looks darker here, but you'll see it dries back to the color that it shows. All right, we're done with stencil number 2. And our next stencil is going to be our leaves and grass. And you can see I'm just lifting up my little hinge up here to change those out. Now this is where, see these very fine lines here of the stencil? That's where you have to move in the same direction, because if I come back this way, it's going to tear that up and you'll get ink under it and it's liable to ruin your stencil. So the first color I'm going to go with is the Melon Ice. It's like a bright lime, just a really bright summery yellow toned green. And you'll notice how I'm just pressing down and then moving forward, always going that same direction on that section. Same on the other side. You've got these little bitty pieces, so I'm going to move that direction. You can also just kind of press down this way. Now on this particular stencil, we don't have two stencils that give variation to our leaves, so I'm going to come back in with a little of the Lime Ricky and provide just a little bit of shadow. So I've put a little of the Lime Ricky, and I'm just going to have that Lime Ricky coming up from each of the, either the boot or the watering can, just to add a little bit of shadow in my leaves. Okay. It's kind of an extra step you can do that I think adds a lot of dimension on your final product. And we are done with stencil number 3. All right, and then our last stencil, I'm going to have to put my glasses on to position this one. Try not to get my head in there. Alrighty, there we go. And for stencil number 4, we're going to be using Limoncello. I took my children to Italy when they were teenagers, and they fell in love with limoncello. All things lemon. Once you've been to the Sorrento area, Now, for the little ruffle on the boot and the bottom of the boot, I'm not going to use the limoncello, just on the little tulipy looking flowers. All right, and then for the bottom of the boot, I'm going to come in with Twilight, and that's just a light gray color. All right. And then for the little ruffle on the boot, I think I'm going to come back with the Sweet 16. Just to bring a little bit of the purple color over here into our boot. There we go. We used a lot of colors today, but I just thought these images look nice with these spring colors. All right, I'm just going to move my inks out of the way there. All right, now for the big reveal. And there we go. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful how fast and easy? I just love these. Okay. Now, if you're using a Brutus Monroe stick and stamp mat, rather than pulling your paper up, that'll curl your paper really badly. So take the stamp mat and curl it instead, and then it just pops right off of there. The mat takes its shape right back, and your paper has no curl to it at all. Perfect. So if you did get ink on your mat, you can use just your light wet towel to just wipe that off. Or it won't hurt anything just to leave it on there too. I have others that are all different colors, and that'll be fine too. All right. So these images from Taylor Expression do come with matching dies. So we're going to just go ahead and die cut those real quickly. There we go. They're just wonderful. Just so fast and easy to get a cute little image. So we'll go ahead. And I went ahead and made some in advance. There we go. There we go. Okay. Now the next thing I'm going to do is take our Love Grows Wherever You Go. My mother loves to grow flowers, so I was kind of thinking of her when I made these cards. And we will just grab our, I had a piece of white paper here, there it is. Okay, so I'm just going to pop this into my MISTI, and we will stamp this. And the way I'm going to stamp my sentiment is down on one end of a strip, because I'm going to cut it out using this nice long banner piece, but I want my words to be on the far right hand side, but not all the way to the end, because I want my banner to come out on that side. I'm not going to be using the banner on this end. I'm going to use this end, but I'm not 100% sure where I want it cut off either. So I'm just going to go ahead and stamp it here and then cut it out, and then once I get my card put together, I'll decide where I want that. So I decided I wanted my sentiment to be in the Coral Cabana color. So we'll just stamp that real quickly. Alright, and then we'll die cut that using this wonderful banner. And this is another Heartfelt Creation die. This is one of my favorite dies. It comes in a set called the Arrow and Banner collection, and it has just several arrows and banners in it, but this one I use so often for my sentiments. It just is a wonderfully useful die. If you don't have one of these, I highly recommend heading over there and seeing if you can grab that out of the warehouse clearance before it is gone. Alright, so here we go. Now we have our pieces. I'll lay these all out here and get my tape out of the way there. And we are going to be using the yellow. And one thing I wanted to tell you real quick before we move on. For stencils like this, to clean them, I like to come in with just a dry microfiber towel, and you just kind of rub over it, and that just takes that ink off. Now, if you're using like a bright red or something, sorry, I'm shaking the whole table, aren't I? If you're using a bright red, you might have to use water or stamp cleaner because it can stain your stencils, but most of the time, most colors will just come off very easily with the microfiber towel. So I usually come back and do that. Now, the one place you have to be really careful is just like when you're doing your dauber. If you have those little fine lines for your leaves and things, you want to make sure you're wiping in the direction of those little pieces so you don't tear them up. I have ruined several stencils by doing that. So usually when I give you a tip, it's because I've done it the wrong way before. So, all right. Let's go ahead and put together our card. So I know this card in and of itself is a simple idea, but the idea of going to your stash and finding a stamp to make yourself a background and choosing some colors that you want for your background, making yourself a focal point image. And it could be anything. It could be something you've colored with Copics. It could just be a stamp cut out in black and white, a paper piece die like a dog or cat or something that you've paper pieced. Just really whatever you want to be your focal point there. Giving yourself a little window. Now I'm going to decide where I want that by laying this down here and making sure that I have that where I want it. And this watercolored paper, I'm going to, and it's really just a pattern paper with a watercolored look. The way I'm going to do that is just make sure I have it behind here and then place this on the way that I want it. There you go, just to make sure that that covers. And I did make it a size larger than this hole, so that gives you a little bit of wiggle room in there. Now for this piece right here, I am going to add some foam tape to give some dimension. I buy my foam tape in great big rolls from scrapbook.com. And okay, I'm going to have to use my other scissors to cut. I usually never use these scissors for foam. I have dedicated scissors for foam and for paper, but I went on a wonderful scrapbook weekend to a place called the Glamp Inn in Round Top, Texas this weekend. It was so fantastic. If you ever have the chance to go there, in fact, I think I'm going to do a blog post about it because it was just a wonderful place to have a crafty retreat. Now, if you ever look into something, you're like, oh, the price of that is just way more than other places I've gone. It does carry a price tag with it, but let me tell you, it's worth every penny. Even if you just get to do it one time, it's a really unique and fabulous place. So I will do a post about that so that you can look into that if that's something you ever want to try. Okay, so I put quite a bit of foam back here, and I'm just going to pop that on. Whoops. Get up over it a little bit as my head in the camera probably. Okay, now I wanted to do that because when I put my, I'm going to decide about where I want my sentiment to be. Okay, and let's see. We can, I think I'm going to use the boot on this one because I like the coral color with my coral sentiment. So I think I'll use the boot. And if I'm going to use the boot, I have to raise this up a little bit, so I might have to trim off just a little bit more. I am going to add just a little bit of foam behind my sentiment, right in the middle. And then I'm just going to, well, I'm going to have to cut off a little bit more. I still don't have it far enough back. Okay. And then I want to tuck that Well, did you see what happened? Okay, get that out of the way. Now, I put my foam in there, and I thought I left enough room. There we go. Okay. There, right there. There we go. Okay, so you want to put your little banner so it looks like it's coming out of your raised up circle that you made right there. So the next thing I'm going to do is apply this pretty piece. And I probably should have done that first, but I didn't glue this down, so it's no problem just to tuck it in there. All right. Myself a little wiggle room there. I'm just going to put that right around there. Okay. All right, and now I'm just going to add my boot. Okay, now my final step for this card is to add a little bit of bling. And I'm going to be using this little jewel picker. And it comes with your little rubber tip. There's lots of different jewels out there. This is just a little, oh, I can't remember what that's called, where you trace the lines to kind of do an emboss technique. So I don't do that very often. I rarely use this in. This one is from Pink Fresh Studios. I do have one that I also have that I got from a retreat from Tailored Expressions, but they're both very similar and work the same way. So I'm going to just take a few of my sparkly sequins there from my sequin mix. Catherine Pooler makes so many fun sequin mixes, and she releases them with her sets, but you can often get those on sale in the clearance section. So that's kind of what I do. I wait till they're less popular and go on clearance, and I just buy a whole bunch of them. So I'll, excuse me, one of the things I like to do with my sequins is highlight my sentiment. So I'm just going to add my glue. And I like to do odd numbers, so either 3 or 5. I rarely do just 4, every now and then, but not very often. And let's see, I think I'm going to do some of these pretty teal colored ones. There we go. All right, so there's our very first Make It Monday card to Mix It Up Monday. We could put a sentiment on the inside, but I'll go ahead and show you some of my others here. Here we go. You can see they're all just a little bit different, but also the same idea. So I hope that you'll enjoy this and you'll come back and join me for the Mix It Up Monday. Let me go ahead and change my camera view real quick. All right, so let me go. I'm going to give you a real just quick sneak peek of what I'm going to be doing next Monday, but it's going to be really fun. It's some birthday and wedding cards that's got some really cute images from several different companies. So I hope you'll come back next Monday and join me for that. So, all right, I will see you later this week with Heartfelt Friday, this coming Friday. So have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.